Sup, y'all? I am your host, Taylor Onion, and this is Hang Time. We are back this week with Sandy Cross, the Chief People Officer at the PGA of America, where she's been for more than 20 years. Sandy and I got the chance to meet very briefly in Dallas last month at the Women Leaders in Sports Accelerator Summit. Sandy, let's get some hang time. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to hang with you, Taylor.
I'm excited to have you on today as well. So let's kind of start with your career. Would you share kind of a brief overview of your career journey and tell us how you got into your current role as Chief People Officer?
Absolutely. So I grew up as a multi-sport athlete, volleyball, basketball, track and field. And then in college at the University of Buffalo, I was a D1 volleyball athlete for 4 years. And at that time, I worked in the athletic department, specifically in sports information. And that piqued my interest in the idea of a career in sports management. And I went on to Kent State University, earned my master's in sport administration. And I had a couple of short stints right after that, earning that degree with the Cleveland Cavaliers and the United States Water Fitness Association. But I stumbled into a temporary job, a 90-day temp, I'll call it a side gig at the PGA of America. And that turned into a multi-decade career. And it's been incredible. I didn't come from a golf background. So the fact that I stumbled into that opportunity and turned 90 days into this beautiful career has been just so special and such a gift. But I've had a really unique opportunity to work on a lot of different areas of the business at the PGA of America: corporate licensing, marketing services, player development, leading our women's initiatives, which grew into our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives more broadly. And then ultimately into my current role as Chief People Officer, which we can talk a little bit more about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the panel that you were on in Dallas was Fast and Furious, and alongside Kalia Collier, who is the chief of staff, I think, for the Mavericks, and Cole, I'm blanking on his last name, but I think the CEO of Learfield as well. So just a power panel that was there. I don't think I was even tracking on that you were a volleyball student athlete. I played volleyball at the University of Illinois as well. So we have that in common, the volleyball piece. But to hear all three of you was awesome. To hear your journey to go from this temp kind of 90-day side gig into now the chief people officer is really remarkable. I think it's something we don't hear about super often. But can you share a little bit? There's so many different organizations in golf. So the PGA of America, how does that differ from the PGA Tour or the PGA Championship or the LPGA? What are some of the differences between those organizations?
I'm glad you asked because the golf industry landscape is a little bit complex and it can be daunting, especially for someone who is considering a career in the business of golf. And it's a significant industry in terms of size, scope, and scale. The PGA of America and the PGA Tour are wholly separate organizations. However, we used to be one organization until 1968. We spun off the PGA Tour because our mission and our focuses were different. The PGA Tour is largely focused on the male touring professionals who are competing week in and week out at the highest level of the sport across a number of tours, including domestically and internationally. Whereas the PGA of America, we are a professional trade association. We represent approximately 33,000 men and women who have elected a career in the business of golf. They're very good players, but they want to work on the business side of the game. So they come through our professional golf management program and they are trained and accredited in one of three career tracks. There is teaching and coaching, golf operations, and executive management. And our PGA of America golf professionals, they work at approximately 10,000 golf facilities around the United States and at some international destinations as well. Now, we do own and operate some spectator championships at the PGA of America, some of the assets that we retained when we spun the PGA Tour off, most notably the Ryder Cup, the PGA Championship, also the KPMG Women's PGA Championship, and the Senior PGA Championship. And then we operate a lot of player development programs, youth development programs. We have a charitable foundation called PGA Reach. And then just kind of closing out on your question, there are other entities in golf, the LPGA Tour. They have a teaching professional division and a live events business, a tour. the United States Golf Association, the Royal and Ancient. I could go on, but it's quite a complex landscape in golf, but it's powerful. While we all kind of have our lanes and can be competitive at times and in certain ways, we're also incredibly collaborative because everybody has a shared interest in growing participation in the sport, growing fans of the sport. So it's really cool. It's really a special industry.
Yeah, it sounds I'm trying to think as you were saying that if there's any other sport that has a branch that specifically focuses on developing professionals for the business side of that sport, like, not to my knowledge, the NFL, NBA, they've got minor leagues and even the NCAA to a certain extent with student athletes, but those are, of course, more focused on athlete development and getting them ready for the next level to compete at, as opposed to kind of the business side of things. So it's really, really interesting.
Yeah. One similarity might be the United States Tennis Association, the USTA, with their tennis professionals. I'm not familiar with their curriculum or if they have those tracks in the ways that we do, but they do certainly have a teaching professional division on the tennis side of things.
Yeah, very interesting. Again, the you see tennis pros, you see golf pros, of course, at country clubs and different organizations, but there's no to my knowledge, there's no volleyball pros that are out there. Just the club coaches and,
Not yet. Maybe you and
that's
I should
right.
start that.
That's right. That could be the next venture. That's right. So, at some point, you mentioned that you kinda made this move from a career path that was focusing more on the marketing and business development side into this space where now you're the chief people officer. You mentioned some of the women's programs and the DEI initiatives that you've been able to lead. What made you wanna make that shift again from more of kind of the business first side of things to now the people first side of things?
One of the pivotal moments or the catalyst for that was around, I'll say, the year 2012. The golf industry, and really with the PGA of America at the forefront, decided to embark on a study, a consumer insight study, which at the time was called Golf 2.0. So they wanted to take this 360-degree look at the industry, at the sport, gather consumer insights. And one of the things that fell out of that study, one of the main things, at the time, there were 32 million women in America that were interested in participating in golf, but they weren't for one of two reasons. They were too intimidated or they had never been invited. And if you think about it, golf really is a sport of invitation. Whether you're going to Top Golf or Drive Shack or the 9 hole or the 18 hole, you are invited out that first time by someone else. It's not really a sport that most people take up on their own. So the results of that Golf 2.0 study informed an initiative, an industry-wide initiative that we called Connecting with Her. We wanted to connect with as many of those 32 million women as possible, invite them into the sport and retain them. And I was asked to move from the business development department at the PGA of America into our player development department and lead that Connecting with Her strategic initiative. So I did that, and as I went about that work over a couple of years and really dove deep into primarily the gender space, it opened my eyes to the broader world of diversity and inclusion. And then I started to really peel back the layers on that, dig into that, the dozens of dimensions of diversity, and really the opportunity for the PGA of America and the golf industry at large to unlock the power of diversity and inclusion and belonging and access and expansion. Our mission is to grow participation in the sport, and that can only be done through inclusion and belonging. So that was the thing that propelled me into more of a people-centric space. And then in 2019, our then CEO, Seth Waugh, he created the chief people officer position at the PGA of America. And he tapped me for the opportunity to step into that role, which I said yes, and I'm forever grateful for. But to really bring a new and different lens to the people operations or the human resource operations at the PGA of America and create a values based culture, focus on purpose driven work, and the idea that this is a place where we get to come to work versus I have to go to work. So that was
Absolutely.
the journey that brought me from business centric to people centric, although it's certainly inextricably linked.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can definitely see the kind of path, the clear path once you start talking about it. Back in 2012, so the Connecting with Her initiative, were there specific metrics that y'all saw that led to an increase in women being invited or starting to play the game, or what were some of the results of that initiative?
One of the most successful activations we had under the Connecting with Her strategic initiative was a program that we called Get Golf Ready Talent Development. We went into corporations, big brands, the KPMGs of the world, and we deployed a program called Get Golf Ready. So it was a series of 5 weeks, 90-minute sessions, including on course experience. Because sometimes you may go to golf training or coaching and not necessarily get the on course experience. You may be on the range, the practice range for a long time, but the magic can happen when you get on course or you get to drive the cart. So, all of those things were part of the Get Golf Ready experience. We brought that into corporate America to employee resource groups, to women centric groups. And that was really powerful. I remember going into, Whirlpool and KitchenAid headquarters and bringing that to their employees alongside this beautiful culinary experience that they curated. So we brought the golf experience and the educational experience to very non-traditional venues to invite the women in a more comfortable and familiar environment. So
Mm.
that's the thing that pops to mind the most for me is quite successful.
I think golf is one of those sports, and I was just having this conversation recently with someone where I grew up in a very rural area, and so golf for me was not the premier sport for our high school or for, the retirees of the area were playing it. Maybe your dad, your uncle, your grandpa on the weekend, but it certainly wasn't something that was like, "Ooh, let's go play golf." And I think the more I've worked in sports and the more experiences I've had in that space, the golf course is where a lot of things happen. The business deals, the conversations, the organic conversations you have on a golf course with whoever you're playing with can be so, so powerful when you're back in the business setting. And so it's been fun to see things grow like that. There's an institution I used to work at where we would have kind of a summer golf league for the women who were working in the office, and it's low stakes. It's fun to get out there, and there's a few others initiatives like that that I've been a part of. So it's really cool to hear that the PGA of America was specifically focused on doing that for corporate America as well.
I
Or
love that you had that experience because it is such a relationship sport. There's not a lot of other sports where you have that quality time together in a truly shared experience. Yes, it can be
Mhm.
competitive if you want it to be, but it is a shared experience and you're really fostering and developing a relationship with the others that you're engaging in that experience with. Pretty
Absolutely, and
special.
the longevity of the sport too, I think is another. I was telling, again, whoever I was having this conversation with, I was sharing that when I moved home a couple years ago, a lot of folks were like, "Oh my gosh, you can join our rec volleyball league and play on our team," and I was like, I have no interest in tearing an ACL or an Achilles or, like, I don't think it's for me, but the retirement games, if you wanna play golf, if you wanna play pickleball, I'm your gal. You sign me up for those, and I think, again, just the required skill level, like, you can only play basketball truly competitively for so long or volleyball truly competitively for so long. Golf, pickleball, they're even if you're competitive in your head, you don't have to jump, you don't have to run. It's those pieces which make it fun and longer lasting, I guess.
It truly is a sport for a lifetime. All
Mhm.
ages, all stages, you can have this incredible journey and all abilities. There's a number of programs that we're involved in for individuals with disabilities, and it is an incredible to watch them enjoy the sport, the joys of the game, and or compete at a high level if they want to with physical, auditory, visual, sensory limitations, and it's really just so incredible to watch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So shifting gears just a little bit here, your current role as the chief people officer at the PGA of America, what does that entail maybe overall and maybe even on a day-to-day basis?
So I have 3 broad areas of focus or purview. Diversity, equity, and inclusion remains a consistent focus at the PGA of America, as well as in the golf industry more broadly. People operations, our people team is our version of a human resources team. So that's very important. Again, shared values based culture, purpose driven work, and the opportunity to be part of the PGA of America team and make an impact in support of our mission. And then thirdly, which is newer for me, is our events and building operations.
Mm.
So surprisingly, we're coming up on 3 years of our home of the PGA of America being open here in Frisco, Texas. So we're part of an incredible 660-acre campus called PGA Frisco with our partners at the Omni PGA Frisco Resort, the City of Frisco, and the Frisco Independent School District. So our home office is a 106,000 square foot facility,
Wow.
education center, production studio, function space, as well as working space for our teammates. So I oversee those building operations and event functions at the home of the PGA of America. And that's been a lot of fun to really bring the facility to life in the way that we envisioned when we started our relocation from South Florida in late 2018 till today. It's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, I have to imagine at an organization as large and as far-reaching as the PGA of America, you oversee a number of people who also probably oversee a number of people, right? Like, there's a trickle down. I'm thinking of the mission-driven work, the purpose-driven work that you mentioned. What are some of the things that you're doing to ensure that those are trickling down? I think the bigger an organization gets, the harder it is to make sure that everybody is on the same page. So what are some of the ways that you at the PGA of America are ensuring that everybody's on the same mission, holding the same values for the work they're doing?
So, two things. Everyone at the PGA of America deeply understands our mission. We are maniacal about it. It is serve our members, those 33,000 men and women, and grow participation in the sport of golf. And those things are inextricably linked. Like if we're growing participation in the sport, it's going to inure to the benefit of our PGA members' livelihood. They're going to have customers. Also, as we elevate our PGA members and make them more valuable to the golf industry and their employers, consumers and prospective consumers are going to have an even better golf experience. They're going to feel included, they're going to belong, they're going to want to come back on a daily basis. So serving fulfilling our mission is critically important for our teammates and making sure there's a deep understanding at the individual level of every team member of what that means and how what they do on a daily basis supports the mission. And then, equally important, we rolled out for the first time ever shared values in late March of 2020. Up until that point at the PGA of America, we didn't have shared values for our team members. And we embarked on a journey where we developed a set of shared values, but they were developed by our people for our people. They weren't developed in the C suite and pushed down upon the people. And each of these shared values, there's four of them: practice gratitude, have each other's backs, get better every day, and start with clarity. Each of those four has five supporting behavioral statements. So our people know, what does it mean to show up in that way? And practice gratitude is more than just pleases and thank yous. So the shared values have been incredibly important. And then rounding out the answer to your question, we really hold our people accountable to those shared values. These shared values underpin our entire employee life cycle from the time we're looking for talent, identifying talent, onboarding the talent, and ultimately offboarding talent for whatever the reasons may be. It's all done through the lens of the shared values, and every employee is evaluated in their performance evaluation equally 50-50 on what they do, but also how they do it through the lens of the shared values. So that's been incredibly important to our success, like keeping that laser focus on the mission and conducting ourselves how we behave through the lens of the shared values.
I know you mentioned it was a previous CEO who added the chief people officer role. Were those things that you were focusing on before without someone in a chief people officer role, or is are the shared values and kind of the lens at which you're looking through things, those were introduced by you?
They were introduced by me and with the leadership of our then CEO, Seth Waugh. So he created this role in January of 2019. The fall of that year, he and I agreed it was time to develop by our people the shared values and then deploy them. So they
Okay.
were deployed in spring of 2020.
Okay. And I ask because being working in sports, there's so especially I think working in college athletics and higher education, as it has changed in the last few years from kind of the higher ed amateur student model into this business model that we're now seeing now. The athletic director has to be focused on so many things at once, but the primary focuses are on fundraising and external relations and how are we going to get these facilities built, and less on how am I going to develop the people in this office so that they can pour into the students. So my question was driven from that. It's hard to imagine any sort of major sport organization that would have a CEO who presumably has to be focused on some of the same external things and image and maybe it's not fundraising, but revenue generation, whatever it is. And then to have somebody who's in a position like yours that can focus internally and make sure that people are not only productive, but happy and aligning with, what it is that the mission is doing. So it's always interesting to hear the inner workings of things like that. So, and I got to hear firsthand some of the leadership philosophies that you employ at the Accelerator Summit. But can you share maybe some experiences that have shaped your leadership philosophies and some of the ways that you view things in your role?
One of my main leadership philosophies or approaches is the idea of having an others first mindset. And that was something that was really instilled in me starting from a very young age by my parents and just watching them, how they conducted themselves, not only with the three of us as their children, but how they led in their lives and in the community and in their church, etc. So this idea of an others first mindset, I don't think you can ever go wrong. Like if you try to put yourself in the other person's shoes, like really do it. And the idea of perspective taking, and certainly you need to also balance the best interests of the business. You can't be too others first and leave everything on the table, if you will. But if you start with that others first mindset, in any situation, I have found it to serve me and serve the business very well. So I would put that at the top of my list of the leadership philosophies. And then on a daily basis, and you asked about the day-to-day earlier, I'm really anchored by our shared values and truly trying to have that guide everything I do from a business and personal and behavioral perspective. Like it's just been such a solid anchor. And prior to the shared values, certainly we had a mission. Our mission hasn't wavered in 100 plus years. And we had some people on the team at the time who were doing great work. They might have been killing it, but they were jerks in the process. The
Mm,
behavior was very poor. And our CEO just was not going to have that. So, hence the development of the shared values and agreeing on okay, if you're going to be part of the PGA of America team, which is such a privilege, you're going to behave in a certain way. It's going to be expected.
absolutely. To uphold the values, that makes perfect sense. So you mentioned that the mission hasn't changed in over 100 years. I have to imagine some other things have, and you've been there for over 20 of those. What have you seen that shifted that stands out to you over time during your tenure at the PGA of America?
As I think about the things that have shifted, there are so many. It's been exciting to see, exciting to watch, to have a front row seat and to be a part of so many of those things. One of the things that stands out for me though is when we shifted from, and again, our mission, part of our mission is to grow the game. We used to think about that a little bit one dimensionally. We would think about player development and player engagement and growth of the game. But there came a point where we made a very intentional shift to broadening the aperture beyond growth of the game to how do we also evolve the golf industry workforce and the golf industry supply chain. That was a significant shift for us because we want the game and the workforce, which there's about 2 million jobs in golf annually in the US, and the golf industry supply chain, which is $102 billion a year in the US. We want those other two verticals to authentically reflect the demographics of America. Because if the workforce evolves and the supply chain evolves, those individuals are much more likely to want to participate in the sport of golf, literally pick up a club and engage. So it went from this, singular focus of teaching, coaching, instruction, club and hand experiences to get people into the game, which remains very important. But to make a significant shift to think about how do we evolve the workforce that is delivering the product on a daily basis at 10,000 plus points of play around the country? How do we evolve that workforce to attract in a more diverse playing base and again, evolve the supply chain? Minority owned, women owned, veteran owned, LGBT owned, disabled owned businesses, if they're benefiting from the economics of golf, they and their colleagues and their families are going to be much more interested in picking up a club and discovering really the joys of the game and what it can mean to them again for a lifetime, like we talked about.
The inclusion and belonging pieces that you touched on, those are obviously strategic priorities to help grow the game in golf, as we're mentioning. Why do you think inclusion and belonging are such important strategic priorities for sport organizations in general, even outside of golf?
I just think it goes back to human need and human nature. It's just, we all desire to I believe, be a part of something, be connected to something, have shared experiences. We all want to feel like we belong. And we all have the power to make choices about where we spend our time, where we spend our discretionary dollars. And those things are limited. Our time and our dollars are limited. So we as individuals are going to make very careful choices for ourselves and our families about where we're going to invest our time and resources. And it's going to be at places and in spaces and in activities where we truly feel included. This is a place for me. This is a sport for me. This is a for me career path, or this is a for me business venture. I just think it's critically important. I don't think sports can sustain themselves, let alone grow their business or their footprint, if they're not being authentically inclusive in
Mm.
creating senses of belonging and places and spaces of real belonging. Like it's just, it's table stakes now.
Golf is also, I think, has a tendency to be very tradition rich. Like I mentioned, kind of the country club aspects of the sport. We talked about being invited to play the sport. It's not something you pick up on your own. What would you say are some of the challenges that you faced working in a tradition rich sport, but also a culture that's clearly evolving to be more inclusive?
I get the question a lot about the tradition rich sport and also the perception that it continues to be male dominated from a playing perspective and or from a workforce perspective. And I have, not that there haven't been challenges along the way, there have, but I have found much more opportunity as a woman in the game and a woman in the business of golf than I have barriers. And I just think the world is your oyster in this business and in this game, particularly when you come from a non-traditional background or a demographic that's historically been underrepresented in the sport. It's just, there's just so much opportunity. And I'm excited about where the sport and the business are now versus where it was years ago.
What would you say are some of the ways that PGA of America is measuring success, maybe beyond just the numbers of growing the game?
A lot of There's a lot of ways we measure success. So top of the list, I would put our PGA of America members, and we think on the daily about their success and how successful are they in their career? Are they happy? Are they fulfilled? Are they able to live balanced lives? Are they moving up and along in their career journeys in the way that they want to or need to or aspire to? So, career advancement and job placement are certainly important. I also think about community impact and accessibility, which we've talked a little bit about. But the more people we can introduce to the game and have them have the opportunity to discover it and embrace it and want to stick with it, that's something that we pay a lot of attention to. The community access, it's again, I think used the phrase earlier, it's all ages, all stages, all backgrounds, identities, abilities. What we're doing in the adaptive space is incredibly powerful, whether that's competitive or recreational. There's just, I think what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way is there's so many anecdotal stories and experiences that we've observed or heard from firsthand from our PGA of America members or consumers who've discovered the game or discovered the career path. Some incredible stories. People who didn't know that they could work in the golf industry, even if they had never seen or picked up a club in their life. Like I didn't come from a golf background and have had this incredible journey. So, how do we get more people to think about, oh my gosh, that could be a for me career path? We're a business with all of the departments and functions like any other. So there's many things that we track from a success story and impact and anecdotal perspective that go beyond, I would say, the traditional numbers.
As someone whose, dissertation focused on qualitative research, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the
Oh, great.
anecdotal success story, all of those pieces. I think so oftentimes we get focused, whether it's quantitative data or just focusing on numbers and revenue generation and participation in those pieces. We know that that's not always the full story. So it's great to hear that that's a focus in terms of how you're measuring
Oh,
success.
thanks for sharing that. I'll tell you one other. I mentioned earlier we have a charitable foundation. It's the PGA of America Reach Foundation. One of their signature programs is called PGA Hope, and it's for veterans. Hope stands for
Mm,
Helping Our Patriots Everywhere. But Taylor, we have heard on more than one occasion directly from these veterans who have participated in PGA Hope, graduated from PGA Hope, that the program saved their life, like
mm,
literally brought them back from the edge. Like there's no quantifying that. Those are some of the most powerful things that we hear that those veterans share with us. It's
absolutely.
literally saved their lives. It's been a difference maker for their families. Um, you just can't replace it. And the idea that our team here at the PGA of America, 350 of us and 33,000 golf professionals around America, we have the opportunity to truly impact lives through this sport of golf. It's
Mhm.
incredible what we can do with and through our PGA of America golf professionals who are at the point of play every day, touching consumers' lives and helping them in ways we don't even know the stories. So it's so powerful that we get to play just a little small role in the delivery of that.
Absolutely. That's amazing. The HOPE program sounds like an awesome one.
Yeah, we're
It's
really proud of it.
yeah, understandably so. So I noticed in my research that you are an ambassador for Women's Golf Day. Tell me a little bit about that organization and how you came to be an ambassador for it.
So we've been a proud sponsor and partner of Women's Golf Day for 10 years now. I can't believe it. They just celebrated their 10-year anniversary. The day is founded and run by Alyssa Gaudet, and we've developed a really nice relationship with her. And the day is actually now a week long, and it happens across the globe in thousands of locations. And it's a bit of a templated approach where facilities can dedicate a special day or dedicate a special week to really go deep on welcoming new women into the game and hopefully retaining them after that great experience. In my mind, every day is Women's Golf Day, but it is also still important to have these dedicated initiatives where people really heavy up, they put the spotlight on that warm, welcoming invitation into the sport. Again, golf's a sport of invitation. And sometimes that Women's Golf Day experience can be the very thing that unlocks the game for a lifetime for a woman or a girl. And the growth in women's golf has been incredible. In the post-pandemic era, the women's I think we're at 7.9 million women. I'm sorry, females, women and girls in the game now. That's the high watermark for the sport. We're
Mhm.
really excited about it. The retention post-pandemic has stayed. It wasn't, we were a little worried. Was there going to be kind of the COVID boom and then that bubble would burst? But women and others have stayed with the game. It was something that they could try during the pandemic in a reasonably safe and outdoor environment. So it's been really incredible just to see the resurgence of women and girls in the game post pandemic's been incredible.
I am one of those, pandemic golfers. I picked it up gosh, it
Nice.
would have been probably early in 2020 once were quarantined. That was, like you said, one of the few things you could do outside, and I was living in Florida at the time, so it was a good excuse to be outside and back, social distancing, of course, at the time, but easy to do in golf, so
That's great. Thanks for
yeah.
sharing that. And also, as we talk about the women and growing to that 7.9 million, the majority of the growth is 30 years old and younger.
Mm,
So that's really encouraging, really exciting.
absolutely. I
Because
think it's
oftentimes golf is thought of as, an aging sport or an
yep.
aging population, but to see the growth of women and girls and have it predominantly be in that 30 years and younger set is great.
I think Nelly Korda and what she's been able to do, obviously, a ton of the focus has been on Scotty Scheffler, but really Nelly Korda is doing the exact same thing on the women's side, and it's been fun to watch her and others,
I love watching her swing. I'll just, like, put it on repeat. It's
Yes.
just so this combination of effortless and powerful,
Yep.
it's so elegant and amazing.
Yeah, she is awesome. She is awesome. Is there any final advice, that you have for listeners who are interested in pursuing careers in golf or maybe just sports in general?
Absolutely. I really want, talented individuals to think about the business of golf as a for me career path. This is a huge business, a huge industry. I noted it earlier, but we are a business like any other. We have all of the functions and departments and opportunities, and the industry does too, not just the PGA of America. And many of those opportunities, those career opportunities, don't require a golf background. Some of them do, certainly, but not all of them. So I want people to bear that in mind. And then, not just in golf, but in any sport, the power of relationships is so important. Like,
Mm,
you do have to build your network, you do have to expand your network. In golf, also things that are adjacent to the sport that you're pursuing, whether it's golf, non golf, think about things that are adjacent to the industry that you're interested in. Volunteer, raise your hand, look for stretch assignments, things that maybe aren't right in your lane. And, I think about my career path and my biggest opportunities for growth and where I experienced the most growth was when I jumped into the unknown and
mm.
tried something that felt a little bit uncomfortable or maybe a lot uncomfortable, but maybe somebody saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at the time. But I think, have heard the phrase, take the leap and you will get your wings on the way down. You will figure it out. And your biggest growth is going to come from those moments where you stretch outside your role or your industry and do something that is a little bit unexpected.
Yeah, they do say the biggest growth happens outside of that comfort zone. So,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right, if you could get some hang time with any woman in sports, who would it be and why?
This is such a great question. There are so many women in sports and business leaders that I admire right now. And I'm particularly enamored with some women who have gotten into team ownership, team investment. I love watching what they're doing at League One volleyball.
Mhm.
That's been incredible. But with that said, Taylor, and I'll bring it back to the comments you and I just shared about adjacency. I think about if I had an opportunity for hang time with one person, she would actually be outside of sports, and
Mm,
that's Anna Wintour, who is
yep.
I'll get the title wrong, editor-in-chief, executive editor, owner, all of those things of Vogue.
Mhm.
Think about what she has done over this multi-decade career. to reinvent that product and keep that product relevant, grow the customer base. There's just so many things that I think are applicable to what leaders in the business of sports are doing. So if we look at something like what Anna has done with a product like Vogue and try to apply those insights and those approaches and those philosophies to whatever the sporting product is, that's what I'd want to do. That's
Mm.
who I'd want to have my hang time with than necessarily someone who's right square in the business of sports.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one and a first, I think, for answers on the podcast. I like it. Where can they get involved? Where can they follow you or follow the PGA of America and some of the initiatives that y'all have going on?
Thanks for asking. So, two things, pga.com, that is our hub, whether on the web or our digital and social channels. Please follow us and you'll be able to avail yourself of everything. Our PGA coaches, our programmatic offerings, again, all ages, all stages, all backgrounds. I think you'll find a wealth of information there. And then personally, I'm on LinkedIn, Sandy Cross, and would welcome the follow.
Awesome. Well, Sandy, thank you so much for taking the time out of what I assume is a very busy schedule to join us and talk a little bit about your background and experiences.
Thank you as well, Taylor. It's been a pleasure.
All right, listeners, we will see you back in a couple of weeks. Until then, you can follow along at HangTimeP0D on Instagram, TikTok, and X. We will see you next time.